Hello, I'm Vince Sims. We're celebrating Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s life and legacy and his birthday this month. And we'd like to invite you to join our celebration today on 5 Talk Street. Dr. King is known as a great leader and advocate for civil rights. His dedication to equality for all people, especially people of color, opened doors that are still open today. Dr. King was a husband and a father, an intellectual, a clergyman, a writer, and an orator. He was confident, kind, and courageous in a time when black men had very few rights and were killed for stepping out of line. His commitment to nonviolent resistance to discriminatory laws and actions were inspired by his Christian faith and Gandhi. Between 1957 and his assassination in 1968, he traveled and spoke anywhere there was protest against injustice. He consulted with presidents and world leaders. His relentless pursuit of justice garnered attention from the entire world. He stood for hope and love, and that may just be why his legacy is so strong today, 54 years after his death. My first guest met Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. when he was a child and says it was the most powerful moment in his life. Dell Long is with us today. He's a retired City of Dallas employee, an advocate for social change, and a longtime supporter of Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and a member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, as was Dr. King. And he's also the survivor of the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing in 1963. Living history sitting here with us on our set of 5 Talk Street. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Let's talk about this. Take us back to 1963 and the church bombing.
I was 11 years old. The civil rights movement started in Birmingham, actually with Fred Shuttlesworth. There were demonstrations throughout the city, and all of that began at 16th Street Church, which was one of the largest sanctuaries in the city, and it was right on the edge of downtown Birmingham. And the idea would be to have the rallies in the church, leave the church, walk across Keller Ingram Park, and then over to the government center and kneel and have prayer and come back. That's what Dr. King wanted to do. But inevitably, they never got past the park because they were met by dogs and eventually water cannons and so forth. So 16th Street Church played a very significant role in the civil rights movement because it all began right there at that church.
Mm-hmm. Which that would seem to be the reason for the targeting of it there.
Absolutely.
So take us back to that Sunday.
Well, my mother dropped Ken and I, my brother, off at church. Normally she would be going to Sunday school with us too, but she was a school teacher and her lesson plans were due the next day. So she dropped us off and went back home to finish up her work. Ken went to his class, I went to mine, and my class was in the library in the basement of the church. There were boys 11, 12, 13, 14, maybe, yeah, in the room. Sunday school had just ended, and our teacher went upstairs to begin his work as a deacon. It was Youth Day, and ironically, the theme for the day was the love that forgives. Anyway, the Sunday school was over, and we should have been upstairs too, getting our instruments ready because most of us played in the church orchestra. But no, we were downstairs talking about stuff that boys talk about. Football, who's gonna have the best band, who's gonna have the best football team and all of that. And then all of a sudden the room started to shake. The lights went out, dust everywhere. The percussion from the sound was so intense that I really don't remember hearing the noise, but you could see the building shaking. Mm-hmm. There was a huge bookcase that reeled back and forth, full of books. And had it fallen over on some of us, it would have killed us, really. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was tough. So we looked at each other, wondering what was going on, and we ran out of the room. We went into the open area, the plenary area, and I remember running into folding chairs and hitting my shins, but the adrenaline said, keep running. And I ran out the door that I came in, and the police met me, and he told me to get back down in there, and I ran right past him. I got on the outside, and there was a eerie feeling. It was a fall day, overcast. I saw the pigeons flying around, and then it caught me. There was the odor of gunpowder. And I said, golly, the church has been bombed. I guess you wonder, well, you're 11 years old, what do you know about gunpowder, cap pistols, and fireworks that we shouldn't have been playing with? And I started to see people come down the stairs who had been up in the main sanctuary Sunday school. Many of them were being escorted down, many were bleeding, a lot of them were crying, and everybody was looking for their loved ones. So I went back into the basement, once again looking for my brother, because his Sunday school class was on the other, on the other side of the building. But pretty soon I found him. We were standing on the corner. My dad was right up the street at A.G. Gaston Motel where he worked. That had been bombed a few months prior. And we saw him coming. He took us, he found us, he hugged us with tears in his eyes, and he took us back up to his office and tried to call home and tell our mom, I found the boys and they're okay.
Wow.
So that was the 16th Street Baptist Church of September 15th, 1963. Now, later on that day, we found out that 27 people went to the hospital. 4 precious lives were lost, Addie, Denise, Cynthia, and Carol. And then later on, 2 young men, 2 African-American boys were killed. One was shot by the police for throwing rocks, and the other one was shot by an Eagle Scout, a white guy. Nothing ever happened to either one of them.
Wow. Mr. Long, we need to take a little break here, but we're going to come back because I know after this, Dr. King visited and you had a chance to have an interaction with him. We want to hear more about that in just a moment. And we'll be right back in just a moment. Welcome back to 5 Talk Street. Today we're talking with Del Long. He's one of the survivors of the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing that took place in 1963 during the height of the Civil Rights Movement. You were just explaining about being a young child in there, but you also had interactions with Dr. King after this. Tell us about that.
Absolutely. Well, the following week after the bombing, the tragic bombing, was spent visiting with grieving families, going by to check on them and offer our condolences. Carol's funeral was Tuesday, as I recall. And then the following day, Wednesday, Cynthia, Denise, and Addie was funeralized. It was at 6th Avenue Baptist Church, and there were too many people for me to get in. But I heard Dr. King's eulogy from the outside, and I heard that powerful voice and melodious oratory. And then after the service was over, I watched the pallbearers bring out 3 coffins and place them into the hearse. And then Dr. King led the recessional of ministers, Reverend Abernathy, Reverend Cross, and several others. And there he was, 10 feet away from me, looking at me just like I'm looking at you today. The most powerful moment in my entire existence. I never will forget that. Every time I attempted to look away, looked like he was looking directly at me. And so, you know, I'd seen him on TV, I'd seen him in Life magazine, Look magazine, but I'd never seen him in person. And that was my moment. And when I combined that moment with what my grandmother, the mantra that she used when she talked to us about race and civil rights, she would always say, boys, you want to be successful in life, you pray, have faith, walk upright, and get a good education. But the day of the bombing, she added something else. She said, do something for somebody else. God spared you for a reason. Could have been 4 little boys versus 4 little girls. So when I combined what she said with that moment of looking into Dr. King's eyes, I knew that there was something good for me to be able to do. I just didn't know what it was. And then 10 years later, as a student at Texas Southern, at an Alpha meeting, I found out about Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and I've been doing it ever since.
How impactful was that? As I believe you said, you were 11 years old to be standing there 10 feet away from Dr. King and just seeing this icon of a person, even back then, as you said, you've been seeing him on TV. What did that mean to you?
Well, it was powerful. I always thought that Dr. King was the bravest man that I'd ever known of. I knew the type of stuff was going on in Birmingham. They bombed his brother's home, and his brother's kids were our best friends. And so we were all involved in all of that was going on, and the things that he would do and the things that he would put himself in harm's way, seemingly without any fear, was significant to me. He was arrested in Birmingham. He was placed in a cell by himself, and that's where he penned the famous a letter from a Birmingham jail. If we had time, that's a whole nother show. But a brilliant essay that spoke to several white ministers in Birmingham who put an article out in the Birmingham News saying, Dr. King, we understand why you're here. We know what you're doing, but please wait. And that essay was in response to them asking him to wait. And he said, you know, wait always means never. And that led to one of his famous book, Why We Can't Wait.
Yeah. And this has inspired you to give back, and that's what you've been doing through the organization.
Absolutely. You know, I tell my story. I take them to the library and we look up stuff about Dr. King. We watch some of the film, and then I visit with my littles and have them understand that people that came before them made things available to them, schools, accommodations. You know, I grew up in a situation where you can try on a pair of shoes or go to a waiting room or have a lunch at a lunch counter. But I asked them to make something of themselves. And I think that's the significant message that I've been able, or at least I've attempted to do with the 8 littles that I've worked with over the last 50 years.
Mm-hmm. And you're doing that now here in North Texas. I know you're part of history there, but you do live here now, and it's important to share this history.
Absolutely. There's so much history, American history. I just don't call it black history. It's American history. It's the foundation from which many things in this country took place. The Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, the Federal Housing Act, all of those followed the death of Dr. King and the death of those 4 girls who were killed in the bombing, and the 2 little boys.
Dale Long, thank you so much for being here on 5 Talk Street, sharing your powerful and inspirational story and sharing this with us. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And you're welcome back anytime.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right, don't go away. 5 Talk Street, we'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back to 5 Talk Street. We're celebrating the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And my next guests have a very special tribute to Dr. King. Chauntel Brown is here. She's a health insurance broker, a former Miss Black Oklahoma State University, and a public speaker. And Micheon Brown has also joined us. She's a retired radio and television executive and Chauntel's proud mother. So we want to thank both of you for being here with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We really appreciate this.
You are welcome. Chauntel,
yes.
You recite the famous I Have a Dream speech. When did you start doing this, and why is this important to you?
So I first started it all started when I was crowned Miss Black Oklahoma State University. My mom actually was the one who encouraged it, and I'm just so grateful for her because that's where it all began, because I didn't know what to do. But once it started, then, and after it was all said and done with me being crowned, it still spoke to me. The speech, the power of the speech still spoke with me. So I just wanted to make sure that I continued it on. I just didn't know how, but then my mom, with her being the creative mind that she is, she kept it going, and I'm so glad. I'm so proud of that.
And really kept it going because you've been doing this all over.
I have. Yes, I have. I've been doing it from Oklahoma, where it all began, to even in California, to New York, DC, and so Houston, of course here, my hometown in Texas, Dallas, Texas. So yes, all of that.
All right, and Mom, this obviously, how important is this to you to support her on this journey?
It means a lot to me. Chauntel and I were extremely close, and God blessed me with her, and I love her so much. But it's been so important watching her do this speech. My experience with it is once she won the title of Miss Black OSU, it kept resonating in my spirit. I kept dreaming about her doing the speech, Dr. King doing the speech, and so I knew that God wanted her to do something more with it. So I wanted to support that, and it reminded me when she was a young girl, and she was a dynamic orator. And so I knew that her doing this iconic speech would be perfect for her. And for her peer groups, the millennials and on to Gen X, I just want them. Gen Z. See, I'm thinking about my generation, y'all. But Gen Z, I just want to say, remember the dream and reach out for your goal no matter what it is, and just be good at it and strive for it. And for my generation and the shoulders that I stood on, just remember what our ancestors worked so hard for us to have a better future.
Yes, ma'am.
So let's love each other and be kind and respect one another.
All right. Well, thank you both and for what you're doing. So now let's listen to an excerpt from your speech, reciting the speech, I Have a Dream by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
50 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. This joyous daybreak came to end the long nights of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro is still not free. I say to you today, my friends, that even though we still face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day my 4 little children will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the culture and their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing we will be free one day. And if America is to be great, this must become true. So let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from the Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi. From every mountainside, let freedom ring! And when this happens, when we allow freedom to ring, when we allow it to ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing the words of the old Negro spiritual. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last. I'm Chauntel Brown, and I have a dream to let freedom ring in the United States of America and across the world. I have a dream that we will not let Dr. King's dream die, that we will band together as a people and ask God to continue to allow us to prosper. I'm Chauntel Brown, and I have a dream.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here, both of you. Thanks for sharing your gift with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate you.
We appreciate it.
You're welcome. All right, we'll be right back with more 5 Talk Street special tribute to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Welcome back. We've been celebrating Dr. King's life and legacy here on 5 Talk Street today, but we want to tell you about some local programs and events taking place so you can join the celebration. Our good friend Jim Austin is here. He is the founder of the National Multicultural Western Heritage Museum and the MLK Jr. Holiday Celebration Month. Thanks so much for being here with us.
Oh, it's always good to see you, Vince.
You know, you do this a lot in these programs. Why is this so important to remember Dr. King like this for you?
Dr. King, you know, he was the heart of the nation, and he means so much to this country and what he did and being there and elevating us from nonviolence, and it was so important. He stood for everyone, not just African Americans, but just a way of supporting us and making this country one of the best countries in the world. And I imagine if he was still alive today, what a difference this world would have been if he was not assassinated.
Yeah. And why is it important for you to do celebrations like this for the public?
The National Multicultural Western Heritage Museum celebrates the diversity of this country. A lot of people don't realize that 1/3 of the cowboys were Black, Hispanic, Native American. So we do programs that are across the board in celebrating our history.
And you've been a civil rights advocate for a long time, so I imagine it is important for you to make sure that people know that history and remember even Dr. King's history.
Well, being a proud graduate of Howard University and a member of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity, they taught us those things at Howard University, the importance of celebrating and supporting our community. So it gives me great pleasure to celebrate Dr. King's birthday in January with so many activities that we have going on.
Let's talk a little bit about these activities, because I know you love the entertainment, so let's talk a little bit. Tell me some of the highlights of this.
Well, the big thing is the parade. We get out downtown and we march in honor of Dr. King, and we've been doing that for, I think about 40 years. We've been doing the parade, and I've been on that committee. So this year we'll have that on his birthday on the 16th. And then right after that, we've been doing the Cowboys of Color Rodeo, which is probably our 30th year, put on by the Fort Worth Stock Show. And it's at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and people of color come out and celebrate the history of the forgotten cowboys. And it's special to me because that day I get to ride in the Grand Entry Parade and just try to stay on that horse and do what I do.
Okay, so it's not just, you're not just wearing the outfit, you're going to be on the horse.
I'm going to be on the horse, and I'll be waving to the people, and it's just a lot of fun. It's a 2-hour show. It's at 2 o'clock. It's always sold out, so you need to go to cowboysofcolor.org and get your tickets now. And don't be calling me, Vince, needing me to hook you up with some tickets, buddy.
You know how sometimes I have to do. I need that hookup. Now, Jim Austin being a part of this, is there any music involved in any of this?
Of course, of course. We have a concert with Tatiana Mayfield during the month, and then we have some blues and we have some jazz. So we always celebrate with music when you got Jim Austin involved, and that'll be at the Warehouse DFW on East Berry Street.
Always important to have that. And as you said, need to get tickets and stuff early because this stuff always sells out. How do people go about finding out more about what events are happening, when and where, and getting those tickets?
Yeah, just go to cowboysofcolor.org and go ahead and register and see when the events are going on. We have a health fair going on, and we have a day of service. So if you want to come out and do some service, just come on out. And those events are absolutely free.
Free, and it's all about fun and honoring, right?
Yeah,
Isn't that what you're saying?
yeah. Middle name fun, just trying to make something happen. Or they can go to jimaustinonline.com for those activities also.
All right, but it's definitely about remembering Dr. King and his works.
Sure. It's all about the month of January and celebrating the King's birthday. And we just do it all throughout the month.
Yes,
Not
sir.
just one day, the whole month of January.
Jim Austin, as always, thank you so much for being with us.
It is my pleasure to be here, my friend.
Yes, sir. All right.
Thank you,
Take
sir.
care. And we want to let you know you can visit NBCDFW.com/community for a full list of MLK events to enjoy. I'm Vince Sims. This is 5 Talk Street. We'll see you next time.